Hey guys, I'm Beck from Nerds of the West, and today I'll be running you guys through my top 5 favorite board games. This is a little series we're doing here at Nerds of the West, so make sure you hit the subscribe button to make sure that you catch all of the Nerds' favorite games. But for now, let's get into it. So, today we're starting off with Muffin Time. It is a game published by Big Potato Games. However, it was developed by Thomas Tomska Ridgewell and friends based off his popular YouTube series, The Astuff Movies. I love this game because the goal is simple. Have 10 cards in your hand by the start of your turn. Now, getting to that goal is not as easy as you would think. Sure, you only have to play a trap card or an action card or draw a card on your turn, but the kinds of moments that creates in the whole grand scheme of the game is phenomenal.
Come on, Bailey. Old boy is wearing a hat, just got there.
Normally in these kinds of games, what you find is it's pretty basic. You play a card that helps you draw cards. You play a different card that makes another player discard cards. In this game, however, it takes it to a whole nother level. There are trap cards, which punish players for doing things that aren't even in the game. You have action cards that may literally do absolutely nothing, and you can even have some action cards that are just mini games in and of themselves, getting everybody at the table involved. This game's theme is also super fun. If you're familiar with the Astuff Movies, every card and every character you see on here is actually based from this YouTube series. Ultimately, there are a couple of reasons why I love this game. Mostly, it is a simple game, simple gameplay, simple mechanics, simple goals, but the way that you play it makes it just so complex and so involved that it's such a fun and a joy to play. Another reason why I love it, honestly, is its box. Like, how can you not look at something like this and immediately fall in love? And thirdly, I love it because of its printing errors. Now, the reason why is because when I first got this game, I was ultimately a little bit disappointed because I had some cards that were smooth and smaller than their other counterparts. And a week later, I received an email from the publishers and the creators that said, hey guys, we messed up. We're gonna be sending you those cards again, so just give us your email addresses. And honestly, the fact that they were willing to own up to their mistakes and just immediately rectify it with no fuss, no mess, did it actually happen? It was phenomenal for me. And ultimately, that's why I love this game. My next favorite game is Sagrada, a game that every time is beautiful and gorgeous and cerebral. It is a game about dice drafting and window crafting, and every time what you end up with is a beautiful result. Again, it's a simple concept. You are artists creating a window of the beautiful Sagrada Church, and it is against you and other players in terms of who can get the dice that they need and how can they fit it into their tableau of a stained window. This game is always fun for me because it's never the same game twice. You get to change out the kind of goals you need to meet. It's always dependent on the people you play with, and then ultimately it does depend on the window you're trying to create. It has some inspiration from games like Sudoku, and it always depends on the people you play with. Do you have friends that like to hate draft, or do you have friends that are literally just trying to work at creating the best window possible? I'm usually the latter. There are personal objectives that you yourself have to meet and community objectives that you and your fellow players need to meet as well. They also make it so that you have powers that you can actually use to fix and break your windows. Ultimately, what it comes down to is trying to make the best window in this church as you can. And what you end up with is this game where, one, it's difficult, it's never easy, and two, it's frustrating because your friends are always trying to undermine you. No matter what, with this game, it's always fun, it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, and you always have a good time. Next up, in a similar vein to Sagrada, we have Azula, a game in which you're attempting to create a beautiful mosaic from a pool of tiles that you and your comrades have access to. This game is less luck heavy and more heavily based on how you use your resources in any given turn. You pick colors to put onto your board, and you need to place colors in certain orders to gain the most points in any given round. Where Sagrada, you're attempting to fill out a tableau, which satisfies me a little bit more, Azula is more about creating those combos that allow you to really rack up the points amongst you and your friends. Some of the hate drafting that can come with this sort of game does mean you might have some frustrating and less fun versions of the game, but ultimately every single time that I've played it, I've always just had a really good time with it. And Azul is less about rules and more for the feel and the look of the game. Azul being the Portuguese word for blue, you can see it's starting to fit into the theme of my games of beautiful. I also love the fact that this game is actually so simple that we at Nerds of the West could fit it into Minecraft. It's a game that can be broken down into a simple mathematical equation of draw X amount of tiles, place them somewhere on your board. It is a simple game, it is a beautiful game, and ultimately it can be complicated, and you just need to find a way that makes it work for you to get the most points. Speaking of beautiful games, speaking of simple games, speaking of games you can put into Minecraft, I can't go past Tiny Towns. This has been mentioned in Lachlan's list. However, I love it so much that I can't let it go without being mentioned at least once more. This game, it's simple. You have a 4x4 town that you are trying to turn into a beautiful village. In this game, you pick up blocks and you build buildings. The real trick and the real challenge with it really comes from being able to fit as many buildings you can into your town as you rapidly run out of room. I remember in my first playthrough of this game, I think I actually managed to completely build a town with no empty gaps or spaces left over. My next game, I was not so lucky. This is the kind of game where no matter when, if someone says Tiny Towns, you always get someone else going, when and where. This game is simple, it's fun, it's a level playing field as well. Knowing how to play the game helps, but it doesn't really put you that far ahead of anywhere else. And ultimately, I just love the way that it's about building something with your own two hands. At the end of the day, this game is about resource management between you and your other players. If you don't need a resource, but they do, that's just tough luck. And it's all about you creating the best town that you can in the most beautiful way possible. And finally, probably the game that created my love of what you see behind you is actually Ticket to Ride Europe. It's a simple game. It is just brutal and ruthless, and no matter how you play, I always find myself having just a great time. The aim of the game is simple. Draw cards and then place those cards as train cards to create your own train line on a map. I say on a map because at this point Ticket to Ride has so many variations in terms of maps and expansions and actual versions of the game that I can't possibly narrow it down to one country. There's even little city-based versions. No matter what version of the game you're playing, the mechanics are consistent throughout. You might just find little extra things added to enhance your gameplay. And no matter what, the game is just as simple as the first version ever released. No matter which version of the game you pick up, it's going to be easy to learn, but hard to master. No two games are ever the same. No two routes can be solved by a simple A to B equation. You always need to be adapting, learning on the fly, and you need to adjust your strategy depending on what people have taken away from you. I've played this game in so many different ways, and every time I play it, I always end up having these nice little fun moments where just something has been taken from me and I need to scramble to try and just save the situation. You know, you might bite off more than you can chew and you're sit there trying to create a route between El Paso and Winnipeg, and there's just nothing you can do about it except go with the flow and just try your best. And honestly, for me, that just makes a great game. It's all hands-on, it's about what's in front of you, and it's about making the most of what you can. So this is it, my top 5 board games. They're all super easy to learn, but fairly difficult to master, and it's something that you don't just get on a single playthrough. You need to go back and do more. The other reason why I love these is they all have beautiful box art and just wonderfully colorful pieces, and it's just a joy to play them. Make sure to follow us on YouTube, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit like on this button as well, and hit the bell if you want to receive notifications for when everyone else posts their top 5 videos as well. But for now, thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time.